in association with the Economics Forum and Oeconomica. Today's lecture on rebuilding sustainability, localizing the Agenda 2030 to implement the National Education Policy, NEP, will be delivered to us by Mr. Sailesh Singhal, an alumnus of St. Joseph's College, Bangalore from the 2017 batch of EMS. I would now like to ask Ms. Anita Narona, Head of the Department of Economics, to please formally welcome the gathering.
Thank you, Kavirappa. Good evening to one and all present here. A warm welcome from the Department of Economics in Joseph's College. First and foremost, I would like to welcome our guest speaker for this evening, Mr. Sailesh Singhal, who has joined us all the way from Siliguri. And thank you so much, Sailesh, for accepting our invitation. I know you're a very busy person, and it gives us immense pleasure to see our alumnus, a successful entrepreneur today, a successful person at the international circuit, especially at the United Nations. You've made our country proud. And it always feels good to see an Indian doing something really great at the international level. You have initiated the Unplastic movement, and I think it's commendable. So, congratulations, Sailesh. I think I'm meeting you in person, online for the first time after you've graduated from college. A little bit about Sailesh, if I have to say, I have known Sailesh from the year 2015 when he was, very interested to become a leader. I still remember his enthusiasm in the first year when he stood for the student council election, and that first year usually students do not want to stand for elections, but Sailesh was that I want to stand for an election. And when he came to the final year, he was elected the student council president, and he has taken forward his leadership skills. Today we are seeing him very successful and hoping to see you in active politics someday, Sailesh. So all the very best. And also a warm welcome to all the participants on behalf of my colleagues at the Department of Economics, the principal, the registrar, the rector, the dean. I would like to welcome all of you, and I hope you all have a very fruitful session. Sailesh and I just had a chat a few minutes ago, and Sailesh said he is going to touch upon his personal life experiences, especially in the area of sustainability rather than on national education line. But he is going to concentrate a lot about his startup, about his sustainability efforts that he has put in, especially at Siliguri, and his NGO. So all the best, Sailesh, for your lecture, and looking forward to it.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, please, sir.
Okay. So thank you so much, ma'am, for such a warm introduction. And at the Vahim, I was really feeling embarrassed as well when a student comes back to his own alma mater, and when a teacher who has been one of the guiding principles and motivator as well, who has molded us to where we are today, especially me, I think it becomes all the more challenging and the burden falls all of a sudden if we are still successful. And when we come back to our home, we really think over the question, is it really the success that we are really heading forward, or what is it that we're really wanting to create an impact for? So thank you once again to the entire team of the Department of Economics, of course, the forum, the Economics Forum and the Oeconomica. And I was very happy to see the logo, which was designed by Arya Dubey, which really brought all the four circles together, and how India being an agrarian country was also mentioned, the logo also mentioned that aspect. And I think that is very important when we come back to our own college, when we come back to our own home, something new and something innovative comes as a learning process, even for us who are back again. So I am very glad that today, as we are hosting the 6th lecture series, and I'm very blessed and humbled to be part of it, of course, but at the larger aspect of what we are trying to discuss and what we are going to talk about, ma'am, when I'm seeing all these roll numbers, 21 ES020 or the 21 EMS44. It reminds me of my roll number, and then it also reminds me one thing very strictly, which might be on Shraddha today, to write down all the people who are present and then maybe give a tick on the attendance. I'm not sure still that is going to work on it. So what is really important while we are talking about SDGs and while we are heading towards the national education policy, and as we all are aware, of course, the digital mediums are not able or not giving us the right portrayal to connect rightly. But at the larger perspective, our information could be shared. When we talk about SDGs in general, when it was adopted back in 2015 by the 193 countries in the UN General Assembly, we realized that all the countries had come together in working to those 17 goals, in moving ahead, in adopting that in their curriculum or in their governmental policies or in the process, so that the world in the year 2030, for the 15 years, work collectively towards those 17 goals. And I'm, of course, not getting into discussing in minute details about those 17 goals, but as a Josephite myself, and it gives me immense pride that when I look back to all the activities that we have done back in the campus, and then we connect with all the 17 goals of SDGs, we see that there's a very thin line of connect that can happen. Either you can take it from our very own Department of Economics to the sustainable living and livelihood, or you can economic growth, or you can also go back to the activities that are being done by NSS on gender equality, which is goal number 5. Or we could also go on, if I'm not wrong, ICA, talking about the quality education goal number 4, and there are not many more of it that which are doing. Again, the very branch of the PRO, which is being headed by Kiran sir, can also come down in the goal number 16 and 17. But only that we will have to also get down to the minute of the detailings and then try to connect everything. So the larger idea of sharing this point is that SDGs is something not different. SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals that we all know about, is very much within us. And as Indians, as Anita ma'am rightly said, previously mentioned about an Indian leading something at the international front, and somehow, whether a matter of pride or a matter of celebration, even that the CEO of Twitter happens to be now an Indian, Mr. Parag Agrawal. So I think more and more Indians are coming up, and it is an era of an Indian. It is an era of the country that we are all coming from. It is not necessarily that we have to be born in this nation, but it is necessary that we imbibe the qualities that this nation has rightly and engaged upon. So getting back to where we were talking about, while I come from a land in the eastern part of the country, especially connecting to the northeastern region. So when I had come down to Bangalore for my graduation, and as a student myself and with my friends, I have had an opportunity, not an opportunity, rather, and I would, the quality of a student at college to crash many of the marriages, which of course I have also had done back then. Only that now that we keep it a secret and that doesn't go live. So I had gone to a lot of these marriages, also to some of my friends' marriages, relatives, of course. He used paper, not paper, of course, the leaves of the banana leaves, which are used to serve the food. So I think that is also part of sustainability. I don't think it is part of sustainability of how you're using something from the environment and you're putting it back to the environment, which decomposes off completely. As we are talking about environment, a very beautiful saying back from our shlokas reminds me, Mata Bhumi Putroham Prithviha, which tells us which defines the relationship between a human being and that of the nature as that of a mother and a child. And that relationship defines what we take back from nature and give back to nature. And that has been largely the idea of why we consummate conceptuated this Unplastic India movement, which started with this initial idea of, making sure that an individual like you and I, maybe Anita ma'am or maybe Vinith here or Shraddha, we take up a pledge to incrementally reduce one single-use plastic from our daily life. And I had pledged to not use single-use plastic straw. And likewise, like me, about more than 200,000 young people across the country pledged that we will not use so and so particular single-use plastic item in our daily life. And you know what? That idea got acknowledged in the first ever Youth Climate Action Summit, which was hosted in the United Nations headquarters during the General Assembly of 2019. And when we had an opportunity to go there and meet His Excellency Secretary General Antonio Guterres, I had this blessing to present him one of our unplastic ideas movement. I mean, of course, this is not an idea that we came across, but only that we presented it across to him, which is this glass. This glass is like a very common glass. You might have drank tea. I don't know what you call it. I don't remember calling something in southern region, but in the northern part of the country, we call it as the kulhad or the bhand. So this is the glass which is made out of mud, and you drink water, or drink tea, you throw it back in the soil. It is just a garbage for us. But when I had an opportunity to present him right in the meeting of 193 countries, representatives, the ministers of environment were present, and I said him that, sir, this is a glass which is made out of mud and clay. You can drink water, you can drink tea, you can drink coffee, and once you are bored out of it, you can throw it back into the soil and it decomposes. And lo and behold, a lot of media, even today, have covered this glass as uttering by the Secretary General as the glass of the century. And when I read this article right on the newspaper, I was surprised myself. On the news channel, I was surprised. How did this happen? So, this is something that I would also like to draw while we are talking about sustainability. I'm going to draw a thin line back to the entrepreneurial model that we can create while we can also be sustainable. Now, this glass is not an idea that, I or you have created. This is an idea which has been running in this nation for centuries yet and long. Now, the only aspect was that we have to identify such ideas which are already present within us and present it in a very packaged form beautifully to the world. And while I was in the UN headquarters building, if I remember rightly, I was in the ground floor where you have all this T-shirts and different keychains being sold. There's a lot of different stores which are there, and I saw a bamboo glass and a bamboo cup and some utensils which includes 2 or 3 spoons, a knife and a fork which were made out of bamboo, and they were being sold for more than $100. Now those things are easily available to us. It is only that we have to bring back from the history or from the past what we have, package it in a way that the world understands and present it to the world. And I think that entrepreneurship will successfully run as we move ahead also towards localizing SDGs, also in becoming self-reliant, and also towards creating a mark what Indians can do. And as it is said, that love is in air, I strongly believe that there is an innovation in air, especially in a country like ours. And there are discussions, talks that we all can engage and we can keep on going on. But what is also really important to look back is, what is it in the end of the day that we as young people, that we as Josephites, that we as individuals coming from different parts of the country coming together in creating an impact and creating a change that would not only affect the people at large, but maybe just ourselves. Why don't we become selfish in creating a sustainable model just for ourselves? And I think when every individual, you and I, so suppose if about 120 people are here, if all 120 of us plan to take some sustainable models around us, the lives of 120, the lives surrounding 120 of us would be successful and much more happier. Like say, suppose in our stores as well, we use papers which are recycled, and we use cups also for all our customers as well, and for all the people who come to visit us in on this models. And a lot of things that here around in my office as well, that we are trying to adapt on sustainability. And once we start taking up those models, we'll realize that it is just not uh, the change that we are creating, but at the same time, as economists, as financial individuals, as wealth creators, we would also be leading in this path of wealth creators, as I just rightly spoke before. And for me, again, today is a very humbling day once again, because if I remember rightly, my journey in this campus, of course, started from the banyan tree, with a lot of first years would visit in once you're back in the campus, and all others would have seen. My journey started from that banyan tree, and then it was the very Department of Economics and the first national. I think that there was this national conference which was hosted under the leadership of Miss Anita, um, where the where I had the platform to present our thoughts on the various economic concepts, which of course brought a lot of laurels to me, and then gave a platform to further rise. And as it was all this happening, I have realized something very essential is this, that there is nothing called no. And when I say this with confidence. As ma'am said, it was very different for a first year student to contest in the elections in the very first year itself. And of course, there were a lot of people around me who always told me a no, not for the first years. Of course, there was a lot of support as well, which had poured in, but also there was a lot of no's, and the naysayers are always there. And I think when we took that no as a new opportunity, and I say that again, when we took that no as a new opportunity, I think that is where the entire difference has created. And rightly remarked by one of the poet whom I forget, the two roads diverged in a wood. And sorry, I couldn't travel both. And the one that I traveled by has made all the difference. And I think what is really important is that we travel the roads which are not traveled by. We take the paths which are untraveled by. And as risk takers, it is important, of course, to calculate the risk around us, but then again, to make sure that those risks are good for our well being, those risks would create and uplift us. And as those things happen, not that we come from a family of a political background, but only that the interest was there to understand how this things work. And then when we took that no as a new opportunity, a lot of new and newer aspects and dimensions had opened up. And in that remark, as I was also, as Ma'am Anita remarked earlier, that as we were speaking earlier, there have been tremendous amount of support that this institution of St. Joseph's can ever fathomly give to any student to pursue his or her dream, or to encourage towards creating and building something newer. And having said that, I believe that a lot of support was also engaged in curating, and for me as well, to travel across the country, around the globe, even while I was a student back then. in the campus, be it any international conferences, and that support is the only support that has taken us forward. And getting back, I would also like to share one of our very interesting journey of how we led into the formation of an institution and an organization. So while I was attending and participating in a lot of these international conferences, there has been a common line which was always said that Sailesh, please be on time. Please don't follow IST. And IST, I mean, that was more for me the first conference that we ever attended for Indian Standard Time. But then he went on to mentioning that, please don't follow Indian stretchable time. Well, that is a part of that aspect really hurt me, A. But then over the years, while I was also participating in an Skype meeting with one of the Korean delegation, high-level delegation meeting that we have had, one of the high-level delegates mentioned that, Sailesh, you have been on time. I didn't know whether it was a matter of pride or happiness for me, or was it a matter of worrisome because he found only one individual being on time, whereas in the past meetings, he have had terrible experiences. And that was the time when I was also realizing that the country as a whole, the country as a whole, the nation is moving ahead towards creating a mark in the world. And rightly, one of the advisors to the Secretary General of United Nations said, I don't know how, but all of a sudden India is leading in sustainability, and you young people are rocking it. So when he said this, and there's also this back on the mind which was running around on the conferences of the Indian stretchable time, we realized that there are a lot of young people like you and I, a lot of young people from various parts of the country who are doing fantastic work and who are creating different marks across the country, creating different innovations across the country, which has to be presented in the world. And that is the year in the 2017 when we decided that we would have an institution and an organization by the name Youth of India. And as the name suggests, when we go to the United Nations, if you ever get a chance to log into UN Web TV or to some of our YouTubes of the UN, where I have had the chance to participate, when they call Sailesh, they just don't call Sailesh. They call, now we have Youth of India representative, or now we have the floor for Youth of India. So it is just not for me or for Raisa or for Nivedita or for any XYZ person, but it is for every young person who comes from this nation or from this country of India. And when this good works are being talked about internationally, this creates a vibrant and the energy that young people of this country also have, which is being rightly portrayed in the diplomatic forums, at the international forums as well. And since then, since our registration in 2019, and it is very interesting that we have got our organization registered on the Valentine's Day itself on the 14th Feb of 2019. And then since then, we have had numerous international partnerships, including the past, the G20 that happened last. We were part through the C20 in the civil dialogue process as well. We had been part of the various other accreditations which were given by United Nations for, of course, our work. And the work is not just for an individual, but largely for all the collective efforts taken by the young people of the country. And that is where our 3 E's come. One is the empower, one is the engage. Of course, every young Indian is part of Youth of India. It's only that we haven't reached out to them yet. Then it is, empower. You come up with an idea tomorrow, we will implement it, but the only condition is that you lead the idea. And then tomorrow, if I come up with an idea, I will leave that idea. And, you, the leader in the last idea, would now become a volunteer in this idea. So it's a leader and a volunteer concept. And of course, we evolve. And we evolve towards the 100th independence that we are heading towards the year 2047. It is rightly said in our history textbooks that the independence that we received in 1947 has largely been through the efforts of the students and the young people. And now, as we are crafting this nation, as now we as Indians are moving towards creating a mark across the country, around the globe, in different fields, in the field of tech, in the field of education, in the field of academics, maybe in the field of politics, in the field of diplomacy, everywhere. As we are moving ahead, it is you, young people like you and I, who would be taking that positions at different levels in crafting the India that we see as, in crafting the nation that we believe would be essentially beneficially supportive, sustaining the entire community. And as we move ahead, the core principles of being a Josephite, the fiat et el labor, would inspire, guide us in crafting towards the Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, in creating the world that we believe in. So once again, I thank you so much and the entire team for hosting me and for inviting me here. Of course, because of the digital platforms, I am not being able to see a lot of your lovely faces, but thank you so much for being in attendance and for being here, for hearing and for giving your space on this great evening. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, for that very informative speech. And as a fellow student in EMS, it's actually very exciting and also inspiring to see someone from my course go on to do such big things. So it's very exciting for me, on a personal note. So I would now like to call upon Ms. Shraddha Bijoy, President of the Economics Forum, to introduce our speaker for today and tell us a little bit more of the achievements of Mr. Sailesh Singhal.
Good evening. This is Shraddha here, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about Mr. Sailesh. So, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Sailesh today. He is an alumni of SJC, and he has served as the General Secretary and President of the Students' Union of the college while he was doing his undergraduate studies here. And he is currently pursuing his Masters in Law from the Indian Institute of Legal Studies. He is also a global youth activist and the founder of the Youth of India Foundation, which was granted special accreditation by the United Nations 2020 Ocean Conference. He was also appointed as the Global Dialogue Fellow at the Young Y20 Community, which is the youth cohort of the G20 Summit. He has also served in the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change of the Indian government as the District Welfare Officer of the Animal Welfare Board. Moreover, Mr. Singhal's work has been published by the UNICEF Connect and featured in the UN Flash newsletter. In an acknowledgement of his leadership skills, he was also presented with the Gandhian Youth. So let me once again thank Mr. Sailesh for giving us this wonderful talk, and thank you so much for addressing us, sir.
Thank you.
Do we
Thank
have
you,
the Q&A now? Do we have the Q&A now?
Yes, ma'am. We will start with the Q&A session. So I request all the participants to please type out their questions in the chat box. And sir, whenever you are ready, I will read them out. So I request all the participants. So one of the first questions that we have is, as a student of our college, you've experienced the college life, you've experienced the culture in Joseph. So what do you suggest are some long-term sustainability plans that we could implement in our college itself?
You know, This is very interesting because I myself am trying to find out. Just a minute. I am facing some technical glitch.
No worries, sir.
Good. Okay. Perfect. So, thank you so much for that. To whoever who had posted that question, of course, I think um, the as I said, sustainability is not a very hard concept. Only that the way it is circumnavigated around, the way it is shown that it is very hard and difficult concept, I feel that it is one of the simplest of concepts that we as individuals, as young people, have been practicing in our lives since our birth. Maybe we would have seen our parents feeding the animals. We would have seen back in our campus as well, switching off the lights. We could have seen in our campus as well, having dustbins around or planting of trees. All of these concepts fall under the general idea of sustainability. It is only that how much are we really wanting to take and how much we really wanting to contribute. And as it is said, it is very important that we take that one step at a time. One drop of water in the ocean would fill up the entire ocean as well. And I think those smaller initiatives, or maybe those smaller steps, including taking a pledge of becoming unplastic. When I say becoming unplastic, it is not that tomorrow you get out and you say that, boss, I'm not using plastic anymore. No, you start small. We start small. We take a pledge that we will not use maybe one single-use plastic item in our daily life. That could be a straw as well. As economics forum would also, because this forum also would, I believe, would also be in the process of wealth creating. And as economics also comes with one of the aspect of finance, why can't we think of providing entrepreneurship to of the marginalized communities, maybe by buying the cups that I show and put it in our college canteen as well. Maybe we tell that in the canteen that we will stop using those cups as well, which are paper. But those are not paper actually. I mean, I remember it very rightly when we were creating an entire strategy of sustainability for McDonald's and Domino's. And I was invited over to their headquarters in India. And when I went there, I drank the Coke, and after drinking the Coke, I thought, why don't I carry them back with me? And as an experiment, I put it in the soil. And when I did that, after some time, there was a thin layer of plastic that remained. Now, this paper cups as well comes with a thin layer of plastic surrounded by it. So how are we going to even tackle that? So there's a very thin line of understanding on how we want to implement sustainability, or to, as a matter of fact, this is one way that we are addressing the climate action. Now, the other is, of course, again, the gender equality. And I have been a very strong and very vocal about feminism, about gender equality, and it was as I was also representing as a UN Women Youth Advocate back then. And even for a matter of fact, now when we talk about gender equality, it is also important that why can't we take smaller steps of when we address and when we use general words. If you would see your general conversation as well, we would use words like more in the he form, or maybe in the towards the male usage words. Like when we say we use the words in general as guys, or when we talk about in general sentence we say he. I think also those mechanism of thought process needs to be changed. We don't have to use the word guys, which represents, of course, the dictionary can always tell that they are relatively for common gender, but no, boss, it is not. We will have to use words which are gender sensitive as well, which are words which represents both not just to the two genders, but the other genders. The third gender, or maybe to the LGBT community as well. We will have to use such generalized terms as well to say. And when we take smaller steps like this, we are moving towards sustainability of the SDG 2030 agenda that we are talking about. Or maybe when we are talking about quality education, all of us would have to, address and learn more about how NEP or the National Education Policy would manifest and implement, which of course will take some years as we move ahead. But this is one of those educational reforms that have happened for the first time since the independence. Now, how do we culminate and juxtapose this sustainability with education, quality education, especially post-COVID? Well, while our organization was finding it very difficult to even work at the marginalized young women and men at the tribal places of Jharkhand or Assam and in the interiors of Nagaland as well, where young people in the families, when they used to call us and tell that while we're attending sessions or they're being part of the team members, and then some of them comes up and tell that boss, we need that tab now to, and then we realize that education has become this divide of education, or that there has been a greater bridge that has been created because of COVID. And then we talk about quality education. Now, how do we, find newer ideas of maybe leading that? I think what is really important is, as you asked about getting back to our campus, it is just the smaller things to do. Maybe when we are doing activities for campus, reusing, recycling, which all of us do, we did it back in our times as well. And I'm sure even that happens now. Maybe the first pledge that can happen, can we not become the first college to announce becoming unplastic and taking incremental steps in becoming unplastic by the year 2022, by when I believe the last year batch would pass out. So I think those newer steps would really bring it the change. And I'm mentioning it and pressing on the issue once again, that we don't have to create solar parks, huge solar parks. We don't have to create huge things at the initial level. Yes, those things are important, but what is really important is that sustainability starts with you.
I think that was actually a great answer, because many people just directly, jump to the big things. Like they want to already say, okay, no plastic before you even start recycling materials or something. Like, I think from your answer, it's very important to just start with the small stuff. Maybe have separate dustbins, and maybe start with getting those coolers, like you said, into campus. And I think that's very important. That's a very important takeaway for all of us, to just start small and consistently do the small things until it makes a big impact. So I think that's a very, very good answer. So thank you so much. So one of the next questions we had, sir, is um, so this is regarding the NEP. And so the NEP was just recently implemented. And so it comes completely new. So we were following a certain education policy for 30 years. So how do you think this will be implemented in a much more successful manner? And what do you think will be its effect on the mental health of students, and how can it be better?
Um, as this comes up as an aspect of NEP, and I don't think I would be the right person to rightly understand how it is going to affect on the mental aspects. I think that answer should come from you and from all the students who are already part of it, for me to better understand as to how NEP is a challenge, is it a boon, or it is a threat. And I think that can only come from the students who are already there. And for me, because, of course, I just got into my master's of law for now, but then my classes haven't started. And then again, West Bengal, the beautiful land, has not yet implemented the NEP as well. So I have not the opportunity to rightly understand the implementations of NEP. But, as we see of the reform that has happened, especially with the national education policy, I think one of the very at the forefront, it was very important as a student myself, that there has to be a change in the educational reform. There has to be reforms in the field of education. Now, those reforms, again, would take time in its implementation, would take time in getting adjusted. So suppose for a person, for me, from someone from Siliguri going and studying in Bengaluru in the southern region, I will also take time to adjust with the surroundings, adjust with the locality, adjust with the culture as well, right? So I think that also happens with all the schemes as well. Whether you talk about Jan Dhan Yojana, whether you talk about NEP, we can always have debates on demonetization, of course. But again, when we talk about demonetization, or you talk about any other scheme, for a matter of fact, to say now, but then yes, reforms were needed. I think what is really essential is that as students, as aware students, and as Josephites, we should also find out the opportunities which are there in NEP, and present it for the mass awareness. And at the same time, those policies or those points on the NEP which are not really helpful, or is not creating a larger awareness, or is not effective, should also be pointed out towards the government through school, through local bodies, through departments, or through discussions, dialogues, media, any, as a matter of fact, for anything. But one thing which is very crucial to understand with NEP as well is that now all these private institutions, schools, colleges alike, will have to strongly work towards sustainability and the 2030 agenda, which has been lacking for a long time now. So this compulsion, or rather not compulsion to say, this aspect of sustainability getting integrated in the educational aspect would strongly lead towards the nation where we can implement the 2030 agenda right before the time as well. And in regards to NEP, there are a lot of aspects which are coming in, and you're coming from the state of Karnataka, which has been one of those pioneer states in implementing the NEP right away and seeing how it adopts. And I think Karnataka would then, in the next few years, maybe would lead all the states in the country towards the effective implementation of NEP. And I think more than me talking about it, I would like to hear it from there on how you see NEP and how is it helping all of you.
Thank you, sir. That was indeed a great answer. And right now, we are also looking forward to all the positive aspects of it. And hopefully, we will be the pioneers of change leading towards the new India as the youth, starting from St. Joseph's College itself. So one of the next questions we have is, so sustainability itself to many people is a very alien concept, or it's something that you can only do if you're well-to-do, right? Many people tend to have that idea in their head. It's not something that's very affordable. You need to have fancy bags, you need to have this, and only then you can be sustainable. It's going to be expensive. So what are your suggestions for people who can't even earn the bare minimum? How do they practice sustainability?
Right. So thank you so much for the 20th batch of EMS 70. That was a very rightly put question, and I can see that in my chat as well. And as students, as an EMS student myself, it gives me immense happiness to see a lot of EMS, batch coming up with different questions, and also, emceeing coming up from batch of EMS. But then again, what you said is absolutely right. But then there's something that we also need to understand. And while I was part, not just from then, but even now, while I was part of NSS, and then we had a lot of outreach programs, especially also going down to the villages, I realized then, and then when I traveled across the country, especially in the northern parts, for a year, I traveled across the villages. What I really realized that it is people like you and I who are wasting more and who understands the concept of sustainability as something new. But for them, the concept of sustainability, maybe they don't know the word sustainability, but they have been practicing it for a long time now. You talk about, if you get a chance to travel to a village, you see that in the houses as well, the amount of food that they cook, they don't do a lot of wastage there. Again, they also make sure that they take care of everyone in and around, maybe the pigeons, maybe the rats, maybe also the ants there. That is one. Again, when you see, when you talk about, the electricity, there have been a lot of processes and places where the electricity are being used through solars or through suns as well. When you talk about conservation of water, maybe we in the city or the urban lifestyle that we lead, we are not using it, or maybe we don't have the right water harvesting facilities, but they have it back there as well, maybe through wells, maybe through proper channels that they have created, or something or the other. I think it is the people like you and I who are staying in the urban lifestyle are not practicing sustainability, and we have given sustainability a price. When you carry an expensive recycled bag by Veromoda, that is sustainability. But first, no, sustainability is around us. I mean, I'm telling it again and again, and also making sure that you use as much as you have to consume. In the in this COVID phase that we all have been through, it has been very evident to portray that we should utilize or consume to the minimum because of not a lot of things present around us, or which was not accessible, and yet we survived. We survived by not shopping on Myntra as well. We survived by not sending gifts to our dear ones through Amazon as well. I mean, I'm not telling that this is wrong, but what I'm trying to stress upon, that sustainability has to be understood at a very trickle down concept, or at a very base level concept, that it can happen at home as well. When we drink water, one of my very good friend, Garbita, she started an initiative of the half glass water, and and she had created a mass awareness across the country, talking about that. You go to hotels, why do we have to have a full glass of water? Why can't we have half glass water? Most of us maybe waste water then, or the amount of water that is wasted just because of filling the glasses to the entirely full glass is comparatively much more. So I think those smaller aspects, I think it is about the behavioral change about sustainability that needs importance for us. And then at the larger concept, people who earn minimum, people at the marginalized communities, they practice sustainability at a larger concept. They use cow dung to burn as well. And that is not something that is harming the environment. I mean, it is not that plants are getting destroyed, but they're using something from the nature, for the nature, and by the nature. And I think it is important, even as economics, even as from the forums of economics or Okonomika, that we travel to such places and learn such concepts, and so that we can imbibe in our daily lives as a behavioral change.
That's a very good answer, actually. And I think just like how charity starts at home, I think we can say sustainability also just starts at home itself, at the very basic level. And I think many of the answers to sustainability lie in our roots itself. If we go back to our roots, and our ancestors and the people who came from villages will actually find the answers. They didn't have an abundance of resources. They had to make do with what they had. And like you said, that's the reason why people from the villages or those marginalized communities are actually able to lead such a sustainable lifestyle.
Just adding something which just popped up. I think when we see COVID, right, and when we talk about the health and well-being, which is the goal number 3 of Sustainable Development Goal, we realize that the entire COVID has passed not because of some medicine, or not because of something that has really supported, but something which has been in our genes or has been in our roots, maybe decoction, the kahra, or maybe the Ayurvedic jadi booties, or the other something that is right there in the air. You just have to go to the trees, grab the leaves, and put it on the warm water and drink it. I think those have been just the help. And this is exactly where the entire world also promoted and talked about. And as we move ahead, I think it is important that we, as you said rightly, to go back to our roots, find the right answers, culminate it and pack it with the current generation, and then present it to the world as entrepreneurs and as also forebearers and torchbearers of sustainability.
That's true, sir. That's true. So I think we'll be ending soon, but we have a few more questions. So the question is, what are your suggestions for students who want to start up? Well, as a successful entrepreneur, what are your suggestions?
Okay. Thank you so much, Anita ma'am, for putting that up. For to become a successful entrepreneur, the person who is successful in the field of entrepreneurship, they should give the suggestions, which at the moment I am not. So I am not sure if that would, I would be the right person in giving that suggestion. But as I said earlier, we have all the solutions lying with us. It is only that we have to take the one which would still be valid for this generation or for this decade or for the decades in the future. Present it in the world, present it in the way that the world understands. When we talked about Kulhar, there would have been different ways of presentation. But when we presented, we said that this is the glass made out of mud and clay. You use it, reuse it. Once you're bored, back in the soil, and it decomposes. And then it became the glass of the century. So I think what is important is that, and then of course, we have heard about bamboos being used across the country, around the globe. So I think we just have to use the right materials, which is already there, bring it to the world and present it in a way that the world understands. And when you do that, I am 100% assured that all of us would be successful entrepreneurs. Because entrepreneurship is also about finding a solution. And one of those solutions is leading towards sustainability. When the land that I come from, the place that I come from, it is surrounded by a lot of wildflowers, which is, I don't remember it exactly now. Something with J. I am so sorry. It just, went up my mind. So it's a lot of wildflowers are grown across here. And while I was, traveling in my region last year, I realized that this could be used as a biofuel as well. And a lot of people in the governmental sector and in the research centers are doing research about it. That is one. And then there was one more plant, which is called in the regional language here, kochu, which is being exported by Panama Islands and Costa Rica and other countries as well, Fiji Islands as well. They export, and this kochu, which is like a lotus big shape plant, which is good for your health, for cancer as well, and that the one country's annual turnover on that particular plant is about $200 billion, and it grows like a wildfire in our region and anywhere where there are lakes. So I think it is rightly about taking up as we said, love is in the air, entrepreneurship and innovation is in the air. So we'll have to find those right and present it to the world. That's all.
So, sir, another question that just came is, so some activities such as mining are harmful to the environment, and what is your suggestion to actually make that practice a little bit more sustainable or a little more less harmful?
Thank you for that. And I am, of course, going to write that down for myself as well. I am pretty not sure how we can do that, as I have not really got an opportunity to think on that aspect at the moment. But maybe, we would love to do more research on that, open up discussions through our organization as well to find newer alternatives and see how that can happen without much damage to the environment. And if you would come across any such solution, or if you would want to recommend us something wherein our foundation and myself could come in together in creating a mass awareness about it, we would be more than happy to do it. And I'm going to put down my email address for any further suggestions to come up in the future.
Thank you so much, sir, for actually mobilizing these ideas and actually going ahead and actually being a doer. Many people are sayers, but Sailesh sir here is actually a doer as well. So that's a lot to do with the Josephite trait. It's something that Josephites do. They just doers. So thank you, sir, for answering all our questions. And 20 EMS 70 has also come up with a suggestion, which I'm sure you will appreciate.
Of course.
20 EMS 70 says that when she visits these boutiques, they have a lot of scrap fabric which you could use to make small, beautiful trinkets, I think, like masks or just these small, fancy purses, I think is a wonderful idea.
Yes, this is a good idea, and I would be more than happy if the batch of 20 EMS comes up and takes it up, and we as an organization accredited with UN and with a lot of other international organizations, we would be more than happy to endorse, support, encourage, promote whatever we could do from our end. We'd be more than happy to do it because last year we were in the part of the General Assembly. I remember rightly that one group of the students from Delhi, because the World Health Organization had a report stating that we can't use 60% of the people in the villages, students don't get the right vision, and then this very group came up with an idea of collecting plastic from the colleges in the entire university, using that plastic to create the spectacles. And this spectacles that I am wearing is a recycled spectacle from the used plastic in that region. And this works perfectly well. It has been more than 2.5 years now. So I think, and then we promoted this idea at the international forums as well. So we would be more than happy if more ideas come in, more leaders come in, because in the end of the day, we all want to become a leader, right? But are we also ready to take up the challenge of becoming a volunteer? And this leader and integration of volunteer would rightly go as we integrate economics and environment together with sustainability.
Thank you, sir. It was a great answer. That was really nice. So that concludes the question and answer session. Thank you so much for actually for answering these questions and giving us a lot of insight into all of the questions. You not only just answered them, you gave us a lot of information as well as to how to go about the whole process. So I think that was very interesting and very good for all of us and very beneficial as well. So that concludes the question and answer session. Before I go to the vote of thanks, I would like to request all the audience, the guests, the faculty members as well, to please turn on their cameras for a group picture. Say cheese, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Now it is my pleasure. And so sorry, sir, you were saying something? Okay. Now it is my privilege to deliver the vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked hard behind the scenes to make this entire program a success. I, K.C. Kavrappa, on behalf of the entire Department of Economics, St. Joseph's College, and the entire fraternity of the institution, would like to extend my most sincere thanks to the Almighty God for making this event a success. I would like to also extend my sincerest regards and thank you and gratitude to Mr. Sailesh Singhal, sir, for taking out some time from his very busy schedule and gracing us in this occasion. Thank you so much, sir, and especially for that very thought-provoking speech. On behalf of my colleagues and the association, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Mr. Clement D'Souza, Dean of the School of Humanity, Ms. Anita Narona, Head of the Department of Economics, Mr. Keshava Murthy, Coordinator of the Economics Forum, Ms. Teresa Joy, Coordinator of Economica, and to all faculty members, Professor Tulika, Professor Nikhil, Professor Anne Francis, Professor Raisa, and Professor Padmaja. I would also like to thank the core committee members of the Economics Forum and Oeconomica. A huge thank you to the volunteers who work tirelessly behind the scenes to execute this event so efficiently. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the audience for their intense enthusiasm in today's event and for making this event as successful as it is. Thank you. Before we formally end today's event, I would like to bring to attention of all the participants the feedback form that is posted in the chat box. Please take some time out and do fill the feedback form. We look forward to seeing you all on the 7th edition of the lecture series on the 10th of December, where we will return with yet another exciting topic. Till then, thank you, goodbye, and God bless. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, and humble pranamas to Anita ma'am